Okay, so I'm Pål Krogdahl. I generally work with inside of the financial industry from IBM, predominantly one of the large banks in the Nordics. But I'm also the blockchain lead from IBM in the Nordics. And I was asked to come here today and present on IBM Blockchain. So I'm going to stay away from, to a certain degree, use cases, and I'm not going to talk about the financial industry. I'm going to talk about what we're doing in the area of blockchain. And it's probably important to point out that from an IBM perspective, when we're talking about blockchain for our customers. So we're talking predominantly in a business-to-business environment. There's been lots of discussions here today about business-to-consumer. Our customers work in that area, but we're really interested in how blockchain is being used in business networks. So between organizations that are conducting business, transferring assets, and generating revenue across their use cases. So we know that there's going to be an awful lot of value being generated here, and we can see that actually most of the things that are happening and where most of the value is going to come from blockchain in a B2B environment is around freight and logistics. And we're seeing numbers that we believe are going to be in the hundreds and billions in this area, right? So it's freight logistics. It's in the area of managing deeds, so properties and those sort of goods, and also within capital markets. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk too much about finance, so I'll say just that, and then we'll move on from that area. But we don't think that, to a certain degree, the technologies that have built up blockchain are that new, right? Now, blockchain as itself is new, but the technologies, when we look at how we have evolved towards blockchain, there are a lot of things that have come together. The timing is right. The idea that you need an awful lot of compute. We need to have a cloud-based infrastructure. Now, IBM truly believes, and we have built our blockchain offerings around cloud. Distributed systems, we are talking about distributed ledger. So the whole idea around distributed systems have come to play. Advanced cryptography. Without cryptography, we couldn't have blockchain. Now, one of the things that IBM have done is we have taken an awful lot of our research in cryptography, and we are open sourcing that towards the Linux Foundation to build a open platform blockchain. And we'll talk about that in a little while. And obviously, advancements in processing capabilities and processes and hardware. But when we look at blockchain, we really focus on business environments. There's been an awful lot of discussions here today about, anonymity, privacy, those sort of things. We believe that in a blockchain for business, we're not interested in anonymity. Right? With anonymity, I can see who you are. Sorry, I do not know who you are, but I can see what you're doing. And that doesn't really work in a business environment. What we want is privacy, confidentiality. It means that I know who you are. We've gone through a certain number of steps to bring you in on the network. So therefore, I know who you are, but I don't necessarily see all the transactions you're doing, or the details of the transactions you're doing. Because in a business network, we all know that we're trading in the network, but we don't necessarily want to give away our competitive advantages. So that's key to us. Controlled membership. We know who is in that business network. And we understand that there are going to be networks of networks, or blockchains of blockchains. It's not going to be one main blockchain that controls them all. So that's fine, but we still want to know who is in our network. And I think if you talk to banks, you talk to any logistics company, they feel the same way. And we said quite a lot about know your customer, know your customer's customers, anti-money laundering, etc. today. You need to know who is playing in your network to be able to do that. All transactions, as far as we're concerned, will be validated through consensus, but it doesn't mean necessarily big, heavy mining rigs. There's been discussions here again earlier today around how consensus has been reached in a network. At the end of the day, that will come down to the network that is collaborating the members in that network, they will agree how consensus will be reached. So therefore, we truly believe that consensus needs to be pluggable into any blockchain solution. We also believe that all transactions are immutable. Now, we have to be a little bit careful here because, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe, somehow, with enough money, enough processes, enough whatever, someone can maybe do some changes. But at the end of the day, our point is it's immutable. And that fits into blockchain. I hope everybody knows of the Linux Foundation and the Hyperledger. IBM went and looked at an awful lot of different technologies very early on. One of the things that we were concerned about was that we wanted to make sure that blockchain was, one, going to be open. It was going to be based upon industry standards, and that it was going to be able to be interoperable between however many blockchains that are out there. So we started building code around that. We worked with a number of other organizations, and we went to the Linux Foundation and said the only way that we believe blockchain is going to succeed in the future, just like the internet did, is that it's open and it's governed by someone like the Linux Foundation. The great thing about it is, at the time when it was announced, right, there were 17 companies already involved on the announcement. We're now above 30. The Linux Foundation for the Hyperledger had the largest number of inquiries to join on the day of opening than any other project that the Linux Foundation has done. I mean, that proves how much interest was in this. And it's not just IBM. We're working with all the other companies that are part of the Linux Foundation. You know, we've got Accenture there, good friends to us certain times. Ethereum are there working with us. There is a large number of organizations. But at the end of the day, the governance around it is driven by the Linux Foundation. It gives us an open platform for everybody to work on. But it doesn't stop us from also continuing. And we believe in open source, and we will continue to believing in open source. That's what IBM does. But we are taking the core from the Linux Foundation, and we're building on top of that. So we are building our own blockchain, and we're doing it from a business-to-business perspective. We're making sure that it's going to be performance and scalable. And we're pulling in as much of our research capabilities to look into this. Now, what was said earlier today, there are not answers to all the questions at the moment. What are you going to do when a ledger has been in circulation for 100 years, captured all of the transactions that are happening every day? How is it still going to be able to scale? How is it still going to survive? Lots of interesting questions that we're working on. Immutability must be in the blockchain. We agree with that. We need to have smart contracts. There's been lots of discussions today already around smart contracts. Without smart contracts, how on earth are you going to be able to get business processes to interact onto the blockchain? Seamless enterprise integration. This, we believe, is key. We don't believe that organizations out there, the big banks, everything else, we had a very nice presentation here this morning that said, can blockchain replace the core banking systems? Can it replace the payment systems? We don't honestly believe that organizations are going to throw away millions of lines of code today and rebuild their organizations on blockchain. So what we are doing is we're building a large number of connectors that will allow you to on-ramp and off-ramp from the blockchain into existing ERP systems and other enterprise-based applications. We believe that it has to be easy uptake for developers. So I'm going to show you in a little while how easy it is to get online and to actually start playing with the IBM blockchain. We've put it all on the cloud. It doesn't mean that the only capability we have is in the cloud. But the easiest way of getting onto the IBM blockchain is through Bluemix, and I'll show that in a little while. And then enterprise level security. we strongly believe in the security in this. The security is going to be paramount. If we are going to a model where everybody has got a copy of the ledger, we better make sure that only the right people can see the information they need to see. Right? It comes back to the questions around confidentiality, privacy, anonymity. How do we make sure that this blockchain, or any blockchain for that matter, which is deployed into an enterprise or across enterprises to satisfy a business network, is not going to start leaking information that we don't want others to see? I said I wasn't going to talk use cases, but I thought this was quite interesting. IBM wanted to prove it to themselves, that blockchain technology could work, it could give benefit, and what we were working on was going to deliver value. I don't know how many of you know, but IBM, as well as being a consulting company and a hardware, well, actually we're not a hardware company anymore, but a consulting company, also has a division called the IBM Global Financing. We finance our customers. So in that network, we've got about a little over 4,000 partners and suppliers. And customers can come to us and say, you know, we want to do a project with you, IBM, but we don't have money at the moment, or we don't have the right amount of money. We need some help. We can finance them. And it doesn't just capture the suppliers and partners to IBM. It could also be that they say, we're doing a project with you, IBM, but we know it's a lot larger. We're going to bring in products from other vendors. We need financing, and we will finance them. Obviously, it is not a network that hasn't been validated, so we make sure that the people or the companies have got a valid credit limit, etc. But in this process, which, you know, we finance around 44 billion a year, we have on average 25,000 disputes. And now if you think about disputes, everybody here knows as soon as you get a dispute in a financing process, you're freezing up capital. We wanted to release the capital faster. So what we did was we said, we will take blockchain and we will implement that across our global financing process so that we could try and free up as much of the capital that's been locked in. Now again, we couldn't take the whole process and all the systems that we've got in place across all of the partners, throw it out and build it again. So what we did is we built what we are calling a shadow chain. Right? They're blockchains that sit underneath existing systems that capture points in your process where you believe it is valid for you to be able to prove that something has or hasn't happened. So if you look at the general process for financing, what we did was we said, as we are going through this process, there are certain points where an event happens that we want to lodge onto a blockchain, which is accessed by the network. So we took when an order is placed, when the shipment is sent, when remittance is initiated, when there is proof of delivery, and when the partner submits remittance. And those key points were logged onto the blockchain. The end result for us was actually quite big, right? We managed to get reduction in disputes from 40 plus a day to under 10. And we managed to do a reduction in capital of 40%. Now, the interesting thing here is this was for one business process and in one country, because we only did this in the US to start off with. All right? That's, I think, quite good. So the IBM blockchain looks like this. You know, the green bit in the middle is what everybody's been talking about predominantly today, whether it's Ethereum or anything else. But to us, we will always align ourselves with the Hyperledger or whatever they decide to rename it, if they rename it, out of the Linux Foundation. But to us, we will base it on whatever is defined as the open platform for blockchain. What we will do is we will deploy that onto our cloud platforms. So today that is Bluemix for DevOps, and it's also on soft layer. So if you want to have the IBM blockchain deployed as a blockchain without anything else around it, we can do that on soft layer, on-premise, whatever is relevant for you. We also have, as I said, a large number of blockchain connectors that will sit at that layer and enable us to be able to on-ramp and off-ramp from the blockchain. Now, going back to the example I had a minute ago about IBM Global Financing, we use those connectors to tie into our ERP systems and other systems to be able to transfer and log the transactions as they happened onto the blockchain. And those were points that were immutable. We could prove whether something had been delivered or not, whether something had been sent. We also then, like I said before, believe that there's a large number of added value components that get plugged onto the top. And this is where we believe that the money is in the future, right? And we've said that consensus has to be pluggable, depending upon the business network you're in, how much you trust them, how consensus will be reached, etc. So that will be a large number of different consensus models that can be plugged in on top of a Hyperledger or whatever it's going to be called. The other nice thing about this is, theoretically, if everybody applies to the same open standards, it could be any fabric in there. So from an IBM perspective, we've got a couple of different ways to work with blockchain. We are got a number of garages. We call them Bluemix garages or blockchain garages worldwide, which you can go in with IBM to a blockchain garage, run an engagement with IBM as a agile approach. We will do a design thinking workshop, and then we'll run a number of, am I running out of time? Number of sprints with you to come out with a minimum viable product to prove whether blockchain is going to deliver the values you're expecting and to continue from that. Today we have blockchain garages in San Francisco, New York, London and Shanghai. And we've got Bluemix garages across many other places, including the nearest for you guys at the moment is Malmö in Sweden. I know that's quite far down there, but good for the Danish guys. We also are starting to build industry solutions around blockchain. So far what we've come up with are in the area of IoT. I've seen quite a lot of presentations already today that show IBM and a little box in the corner says IoT. We're not just there. We're also in lots of other areas. So we've got industry solutions around capital markets, commercial banking and compliance that we can bring to customers. And generally what we do is we include those into the work that we're doing in the garages. And we also have our blockchain available on Bluemix. And if I've got time, I'll just very quickly show that. Have I? So, well, I was hoping to show it. So, two things I will show. First of all, if you go to ibm.com/ it disappeared off my screen. Technology. If you go to ibm.com/ Bluemix blockchain, you'll get access to everything that IBM has publicly available for you today around blockchain. You can, from there, go and see a number of sample applications that we've got that you yourselves can deploy. We've done two things. You can actually go to the GitHub, download it. You don't even need to use our platform. You can take our sample applications that are running on our blockchain, download them from the GitHub, play with them, deploy them wherever you want, have fun. The other thing you can do is deploy them to Bluemix. I don't know how many here know Bluemix. Bluemix is IBM's cloud-based platform for DevOps. If you go into Bluemix, go to the catalog in Bluemix. At the moment, we are specifying that blockchain is still in experimental phase. The reason being is because we're waiting on ongoing feedback from the Linux Foundation. So anything that you do with our blockchain, if the Linux Foundation changes direction, we will change with them. So that's just a slight piece of warning, but it shouldn't stop you from getting your hands dirty, as people have said already today. But under the lab catalog, down by networking, you can find the blockchain fabric from IBM. If you open that, and very quickly just say where you want to deploy it. I think I've been logged out from here. No, I haven't. That's good. I'm now deploying the IBM blockchain into my Bluemix cloud environment. Once that's been done, you have to give it a couple of minutes. How are we doing on time? Not great. Alright, so it's now provisioned a container for me into my environment with a blockchain network that I can run with. Now obviously this is for me, but I can invite more people in and we can start building an application on it. There is all the instructions here on how to use it, but if I very quickly go into launch, it will show me that it's already deployed for me 2 validating peers. I can go in here to the APIs. It will give me the Swagger files for all of the APIs that allow me to write to my blockchain, how to register and how to see the transactions. I can go to a live log, which will show me the validating peers running, so I can tail the validating peers. All of this I have now set up in one click. I have now got a running blockchain that I can start developing against. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. That was interesting. And I think it's great that we're seeing